Hey, welcome to a special Music Relish show, and with Perry, myself, and Mark. Right? And how about we just take care of some? We're gonna do a little trivia. We're gonna do a little rock and roll trivia. Okay,
I love trivia.
Let me see if I can stump Mark Smith. Okay,
not hard to do.
Here's the first question.
Yeah.
What rock star, along with his manager and his lyricist, in 1973 started Rocket Records?
Elton John.
You got it. Elton John, Rocket Records.
Man.
He was his own label. Yep. Distributed by MCA, his former label, and then he went back to MCA.
I'm smart. Wait, I'm doing my Jeff
here's
Beck
one.
Okay.
You'll probably get this one as well. What album by The Who has a lead character with 4 personalities? He's schizophrenic.
Dr. Jimmy. Dr. Jimmy. It's Quadrophenia, my favorite Who album.
That's what it was. In fact, Pete Town, they called it Quadrophenia because he was bipolar.
Yeah.
The main character was bipolar.
Right.
And so instead of having 2 personalities, Peter Townsend made it 4 quad. So not schizophrenic, quadrophenia. That's where it came from. Yep.
And only Pete Townsend could do that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's one. Which famous child actor's father was in The Strangeloves? And with his partners, this famous actor's father wrote, I Want Candy, My Boyfriend's Back, and There's Gonna Be Trouble. They wrote that one. And he wrote a couple other songs, too. In fact, this famous child actor's father produced with his friends, with his partners, Hang On Sloopy. And also wrote a song called Sorrow that was recorded by the McCoys, and David Bowie recorded it also. So this famous child actor that everyone knows, his father was this famous songwriter musician.
I got to say, unless you give me a multiple choice, I think I'm stumped on that one.
Okay, I'll tell you who was in The Strangeloves.
Okay.
Richard Gottler, famous producer, right?
Uh-huh.
Jerry Goldstein and Bob Feldman.
Corey Feldman.
That's right. Corey Feldman's dad is that famous musician. Yep.
I didn't know Corey Feldman was related to rock royalty. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Good one.
And how about you and I had a discussion on the phone the other day about these cover bands, and there's cover, like, I don't even want to promote them, but there's like Doors cover bands where they have a Jim Morrison character.
Yeah.
Or, even the Beatle cover bands where they have a John Lennon character. And I don't know if I even care about that stuff anymore.
You know what? When they try to look like the artists that they're covering to the point where the sound doesn't matter, only the look, that's a tribute band to me. Whereas a cover band will try to sound the best. That's always the way I've seen it. Now, when you have a tribute band that looks and sounds like they got it right, they got everything down. But for me, my opinion, I want to hear it. I don't care what they look like, So we were discussing this because there's a band called Get the Lead Out, and I was looking into them, and they have like 3 guitarists. Yeah, they have a lot of guys on stage.
Right,
and the idea,
no Jimmy Page character, there's no Robert Plant character.
Yeah, and they have an FAQ section.
Yes or there isn't.
No, there isn't. In their FAQs, someone said, "Why doesn't the singer have blonde hair like Robert Plant?" And the answer was, "We don't try to look like Led Zeppelin. We want to sound like Led Zeppelin." And I respect that.
Absolutely.
If you're gonna spend $50 or $100 to see you want to sound good.
I mean, if you look all over, you could go all over YouTube, and there's these Beatle cover bands, and they'll put the they'll wear the wigs for the Sgt. Pepper's era, and so that's a theatrical presentation.
Yeah.
I mean, I happen to know, the place in Englewood, the Bergen Pack Center. My lady went there with her girlfriend, and They saw a Pink Floyd cover band who played note for note Dark Side of the Moon. Everything that you remember as a kid, they play it note for note. But there was no Roger Waters character. There was none of that. Yeah.
Right. And then, through the years in our little area of the world, we grew up in the New York metro area. We had some big cover bands. We had the Nerds, who looked like nerds, but it was all show. They evidently, I never saw them, but they said they were
them in the local papers. Yeah.
Yeah, they supposedly
they had the tape
sounded
on the
good.
Glasses and whatever, right? Yeah.
But they were great musicians. They got the sound out. And another one, do you remember Rat Race Choir? That was a band that was around.
Sure, yep.
And they said that when they covered Jethro Tull, they sounded really good. I respect that. I mean, not all musicians can write songs. So if you get a bunch of guys together and they want to we're going to play Thick as a Brick, that's fine. But if you're going to try to look like them, I don't know. It's just my personal opinion. Yeah, some people like the look, but not me.
Yeah. Now, how I just want to talk a little bit about I've been reading about this Beatle publishing deal that they had, and now Paul McCartney went to court to get he gained some control of some of their songs back. So, for instance, I just want to read this. 1963, the Beatles' debut album, Please Please Me, officially released, and Epstein, their manager, Brian Epstein, sought a publisher for the band. So the company was called Northern Songs, which was the Beatles' publishing company, majority owned by Dick James, with Epstein, Lennon, and McCartney, the latter two songwriters owning 20% of the business. So Dick James, their publisher, got the big share of all that money. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I don't know if it gets you want to read that one, Mark?
Yeah, sure. So 1965, Northern Songs become a public company with Lennon and McCartney each owning a 15% stake, and Harrison and Starr splitting a small percentage.
Ouch.
Harrison later wrote 1968's Only a Northern Song about his dissatisfaction with the diminished cut he received in the deal. That's news to me. I never knew that.
Have you ever heard he purposely made it a song without melody, devoid of melody, and he did it purposely to as a jab to Northern, because they were making. I mean, if Lennon and McCartney had 15% each, a small percentage was left for Ringo and George.
Right.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
But let's see what came after that, though. So 1969, after relations with the Beatles and Dick James, their publisher, had deteriorated. So Dick James, the guy who owned the majority stake in Northern Songs Limited, sold it to ATV Music, owned by another impresario, Lou Grade. Despite Lennon and McCartney's attempts to make a counterbid to buy their songs, ATV gained control of the whole catalog, and subsequently, later that year, the duo sold their remaining shares to ATV, leaving them without a stake in their publishing of their own songs.
Wow.
Although they both controlled their songwriting shares, but they did not control their why did they sell it? Why did they sell the remaining shares?
Did they just give up? Did Lennon just go, fuck it? I don't know. It's just there's a lot of money being made.
Maybe at the time. Can you imagine if the Beatles have $400 million each in their estate? John Lennon was worth $400 million. Imagine how much this guy Dick James had.
Oh, jeez.
If they're 15% owners and they have $400 million, can you imagine what? Do
you know what happened to Dick James? I mean, obviously he was living in a big mansion.
Yeah, I'm sure he lived to be an old man, and Lou Grade, the guy they sold it to. I mean, this guy started. He started a television company. It was ITV, then it may have become ATV, and this guy was everywhere.
The circus of the music business. You got the artists that write these great songs, and you got people that just make money off it. That's always the way it's been, though, since the beginning of time.
They had those old English programs with the marionettes. They were called Thunderbirds. It's even the South Park guys made a couple of movies they made a movie like that, right? Yeah. Well, that originated by Lou Grade. That was one of his one of the productions from his television company called called Thunderbirds. Let's see where we're going now. Hang on. So, 1985, ATV Music, having been acquired by Robert Holmes Acorn, or it was put up for sale. Michael Jackson had been told famously by Paul McCartney, excuse me, you should get into publishing. So, say, Michael ended up buying that catalog for $47.5 million, becoming the owner of approximately 250 Lennon McCartney songs, as well as tracks by Bruce Springsteen, Rolling Stones, and Elvis Presley.
Wow.
And of course,
didn't he outbid McCartney? I think they were both bidding or something.
Well, it gets even more complicated, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like what happened in 95.
So in 1995, amid reported financial issues, Jackson sold half of ATV to Sony for approximately $100 million. And together, the two formed Sony ATV Music Publishing, with Jackson and Sony each owning 50% of the company.
So Jackson actually got in too deep for paying $47.5 million that he probably couldn't afford anyway.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's why he ended up selling half it. Now, for $100, he got $100 million, and they formed Sony ATV Music Publishing. Now, when I had that Beatle book, the Beatle chord book, it was a black book. And it had all their friggin' songs from the whole thing. I don't know where it is now. Somebody has it. But anyway, all underneath every song, it said Sony ATV Music Publishing. So this was at that time, in the 80s, when I probably got that book, or rather in 1995. That's when I got that Beatle book, the Beatle Bible, with all the songs in it.
Right.
And I wasn't happy with it anyway. You know why? Because you'd find a song like, whatever upbeat Beatles song there was, and like, oh, it's an E flat. Like, so I just make it a D. Like I'd have to retranscribe everything so I could play open chord. Like, well, I'll play a B flat. You know what I mean?
Hurts my fingers. E flat.
Yeah, that was the strangest thing. Like with these strange keys that they were in, but I think that's just the way it was transcribed.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why not all songbooks are the same. There's Beatles songbooks that are better than others. It's the person that did it.
Yeah, if somebody's a piano player transcribes it, he might do it in E flat.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right. I have a Ritchie Blackmore book of all his best solos, and it's all wrong. It's totally wrong. And I looked it up one time on the web, and everyone's like, yeah, that was a ripoff. Like, who, that's a whole nother issue, songbooks, but yeah.
So, what do you? Oh, what do they call those when they learn you the solo? What is that called?
I can't read music, so I read tablature. But
that's what I meant, tablature. Yeah, you can get those off the internet. Yeah, yep.
Like in the case of Ritchie, it's not like transcribing Jimi Hendrix's solos, who played improvisational. A lot of Ritchie stuff was written out, like a lot of guitar players.
Yeah,
and that's what happened. So, yeah. So anyway, they're all different, Yep. That's what she wrote.
So I've got one more little thing here. Let's see. Let me read this last one here.
Okay.
So in 2018, Paul McCartney lawsuit was filed with an eye on the U.S. Copyright Act of 1976, allowing songwriters to retain their publisher's share of their copyrighted works released before 1978 after a 56-year period. 228 years. This is where it gets complicated now.
Yeah.
So the earliest songs will be up in 2018, which is when Paul wanted control of them. Right?
Yeah.
With the latter songs being eligible in 2026. So he could gain publishing control of all those songs, although Duran Duran had a similar lawsuit, and they lost against Sony in December of that year. Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting, huh?
Sony's ruthless. It's a big,
Yeah, and that, by the way, I got that from Billboard magazine. There's one more. Why don't you take that one, the one additional note?
Yeah, one additional note about Lennon's side of the issue. A provision of that law states that if the songwriter were to die within the first 28-year period, the writer's heirs would be eligible to recapture that publishing share at the end of that first period, which in the Beatles' case would be 1990.
Ooh.
Lennon died in 1980, and sources told Billboard in 2009 that Sony cut a deal with his wife, Yoko Ono, prior to the expiration of that period to retain ownership of Lennon's share for the duration of the copyright period, which covers the 70 years after the owner's death, in this case 2050. I'm confused.
Wait, so does that mean in 2050 Sean Lennon gets to own his father's songs?
You know it's all going to Sean. You know it. Let's face it, We know that. And Julian, poor Julian.
Poor Julian. I mean, he's a millionaire, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, but millionaire's nothing nowadays. That's the poor people. No, but seriously, it's so confusing, and I think they make it like that to benefit certain people. I mean, oh God,
I don't know. It's so confusing. It's sort of like.
And there's a guy that's been in the music business, and that blah 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 came with a lot of background, a lot of experience.
Right. So, Rush on the road for however long.
Yeah.
But that was a Monty Python. That's Monty, like blah 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 blah. That's a Monty Python. That's Canadians are funny too.
Yeah. Well, in South Park, they all got the faceless. The mouths are just open. They're walking around. Yeah.
Well, anyway, it was.
Right.
So we just did a little segment on. Did we talk about those bands though? Like, did we get into it enough about these bands?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I don't want the John Lennon and the Paul McCartney character. I even had one. I even saw one time where the guy. I mean, the Runnels were funny.
Yeah,
but the McCartney character had to have the bass left, like to play the bass left. In other words, I don't even know if he was playing it. It's an act. It's a theatrical performance, right?
That was comedy. I mean, that was not the. It's and again, this is our opinion. Maybe it's a thing about musicians versus non-musicians. So somebody that doesn't play music and they're a fan of Kiss, and they go see a Kiss cover band, they're going to want the singer to dance around like Paul Stanley. They're going to want the bass player to look like. But say there's a musician that likes Kiss, and he goes and he sees a cover band that doesn't look like them, but they play it spot on. I think the musician would appreciate it.
Yeah.
Or, and we know there's people that don't play instruments, but they got musical minds and they would appreciate it. So everyone's different. Unfortunately, the tribute bands are winning the war because they're the ones making tons of money out there.
Yeah, but without not being the theatrical, not acting. I mean, there's a group. All right, I'll say it. Like, this is no surprise. In New Jersey, there was a Doors cover band called Crystal Ship,
who I heard is still going out.
How ingenious! But they have a Jim Morrison character, so can you imagine them
Is he?
What?
There's a bar in Hillsdale, Perry, that it's on the corner of Washington Avenue and Broadway. You know that bar, and I forget the name of it was back in the day, but they said when they played there, he was climbing up the wall to there's a second floor. The restaurant has a big area.
I had dinner there just the other day.
So they said he would climb up and he was doing the whole thing. And I would be cringing. I'd be like, come on, dude.
I had grilled chicken there the other day with mashed potatoes and broccoli. Yep.
It's a good place.
Yeah, now it's called the Cornerstone.
There you go. Yeah.
Right, but it was called many other things, and they still have bands playing there.
Uh-huh.
But they're always cover bands.
Yeah. Then you got cover. Now there's a whole nother thing in there. It's cover bands that just play all different music. Those are the working guys. Those are the guys that actually get out there. They got to have a set list that pleases the audience. So they may play stuff we cringe at, but these are working musicians.
Yeah.
They go out, they do these weekend gigs, they're making money. Yeah, they got to play old time rock and roll. Yeah. They may hate it, but the people there want. So that's a whole nother thing. And those guys I really admire because you don't do that if you don't want to play music. That is people that want to play music.
I remember one time back in the 90s, I think it was, I'm like, all right, we're looking for a place to go, just go hang out and have a couple drinks and listen to a band. And so I called the place, and I said, well, what kind of music do they play? And the guy said, flash pop. Flash pop. So it was the group, I forgot what they were called, but like they'd play Elton John, Crocodile Rock. So rather than the kazoo part came up and they just went with their vocal, they went wah, 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 wah. Like, it was just so silly.
Yeah.
Flash pop. That's what they were categorized as, flash pop. What the hell is that? And why does it need a category?
Yeah. No. I'm not a cover guy. That's probably why I'm not a successful musician, because I've been in cover bands and I have trouble playing the same songs over and over again. It's hard for me. I'd rather play an original, But yeah, like I said, those guys, when you're a covers band and you play a gig, you got to deal with the bar owner or the restaurant owner trying to screw you. You got to deal with audiences that don't appreciate what you do.
Well, I've also jammed with enough people to know, just because you can play the rhythm to Dire Straits, and then the man steps right up to the Sultans of Swing, what good is it if you can't do anything beyond that?
Yeah.
So in other words, I feel like I'm 16 years old again with some of these people. Why bother with that if that's where it ends right there?
Yeah,
you're just showing. In other words, excuse me, you're just showing off that you know the riff. Yeah, that's all you're doing.
Yeah, and you get people they really know a couple songs really good, and that's their thing. But again, if the audience wants to hear Sultans of Swing, God bless them, they're doing a good thing.
Again, when I was 12, 13 years old, a friend of mine, Glenn, his brother Danny had a guitar and he'd go bow, 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 but he played on bar chords, which is wrong, obviously.
Yep.
But when I'm 12, 13, I'm like, that's fucking cool, man. But it's wrong. But it's wrong. It's just.
I think Joe Lynn Turner said that in an interview. 99% of bar cover bands play "Smoke on the Water" wrong. Then again, if you don't have a Hammond organ behind you to back you up, you kind of have to do the bar chord. If you have John Lord behind you, you can get away with just doing the fifths, So.
You mean, with that Deep Purple stuff. Deep Purple Phase 2, right?
Yep. So Blackmore wasn't really playing the heaviest stuff. He had John Lord behind him, matching him note for note, and that's what gave him his heaviness.
Right. In fact, that keyboard player can hold the rhythm while you're soloing, and that was a unique thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Not like Bon Jovi. Yeah, that's crap. Bon Jovi, crap. And I'm from New Jersey, by the way.
Bruce is my guy.
Bruce Springsteen?
Yeah, that's my Jersey guy.
Well, I've said to you, I cannot stand the E Street Band, but I love Nebraska and I love the Ghost of Tom Joad. That's Bruce, the songwriter,
two great albums.
Singer-songwriter to me.
Yep.
Ever see the cover of Asheville Skyline, or rather Nashville Skyline by Bob Dylan?
No. Oh, the album.
The album cover.
Yeah.
He's holding a Gibson J200.
Yeah.
It's a big jumbo Gibson.
Uh-huh.
Gift from George Harrison. George Harrison gave it to him, and that is the guitar that George Harrison played and recorded While My Guitar Gently Weeps on.
Wow.
And he gave it to Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan, you see that exact guitar on the cover of Nashville Skyline, a Gibson J200. Yep.
Wow.
Gift
Beautiful
from
guitar.
George. Yeah. And future Wilbury, right? Future traveling Wilbury.
That's right.
So those guys liked each other, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think I'm working on a sponsor. What do you think?
I thought that was your company, Perry. I saw him
hooks to your belt.
I saw him.
Yeah, down. Where are you going to hook it to? It's a friggin' suspender, man.
Well, that's something I would do.
Hooks to your crotch.
That's something I would do. I would walk into a room and you, Lou, would be sitting there. I go, look, I got suspenders. They hooked to my belt. And you two would just look at each other and roll your eyes.
Well, I mean, if you need suspenders, odds are you're wearing a belt. So. But look, it hooks to your belt. Like, yeah, man.
Some people need a lot of help in the world.
I get it. And also, one time, Lou had sent me a picture. Lou had sent me a picture months ago, and it was I got a kick out of it. It's not fat shaming or anything. It was just like a stray comedic thing he sent me. It was like, what would the Beatles look like if they were terribly overweight? And he sent me this picture. It's like.
That's the German Beatles. That's the German Beatles.
I may have sent this to Scott McLean one time. I couldn't stop laughing, but
all right.
He called it the Flab Four, which is like, you know,
who's next to McCartney? That looks like Benny Hill.
No, and it's Paul, Ringo in the back, and George and John. But it's not. It's just a humorous little.
Those are women. Those are definitely women.
It's not. Well, probably all photoshopped and all that, you know, and whatever. But
I love it.
A little silliness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, we know that I just have a little quote from, you know who Otis Gibbs is?
Otis Gibbs?
Otis Gibbs. He's a songwriter, friend of a lot of musicians. He lives in Indiana. And he talked a little bit about Robbie Robertson. I just want to play a little thing about him, what he thought of Robbie. And he had a good quote. I'll let you play it here.
Hey, friends, I hope you're doing well. I just heard about Robbie Robertson passing away. I figured I'd come out here and say a few words. It just stopped raining, so hopefully I don't get rained on in the middle of this. But, man, if Robbie Robertson, if the only thing he ever did was write the weight,
hell yeah,
that would be enough, you know, for him to be an all-time legend.
Yeah.
You know, to think of all of the all-star jams that end with all of the people coming out and singing the weight together and playing it together. That's a huge contribution to write a song that goes across the community in such a way that everyone knows it and they can all join in and sing and share. People who've never met each other get up on stage and sing that together. That's like Woody Guthrie type stuff.
Hell yeah.
That's serious, you know, continuation of folk music into all the other things.
Yeah.
I mean, the band created this sound that carved out this little space of this whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, so much, even more so than that. Like this guy, Otis Gibbs, I've listened to a few of his records.
Yeah.
He's, he knows a lot of people. He's a good guy. He's one of those guys, like, makes good records. They don't sell a lot, but he's a singer-songwriter.
Okay. Writing them down.
He says a little more, in fact.
Speaking of Dylan, here's a quote from Bob Dylan about Robbie Robertson. It says, Robbie Robertson is the only mathematical guitar genius I've ever run into who does not offend my intestinal nervousness with his rear guard sound. That's a compliment from Dylan, but it's a little bit strange. I don't think of Robbie Robertson as a mathematical guitar genius.
And I know you know what he means by that, right?
You know, a guy who's all feel and is not doing math when he's playing music, which is a huge compliment.
It's mathematical as in how it fits the song, how the notes fit into the song.
Right, but also
structure.
in the sense that, like, I'm a mathematical guitar player. If I play a lead in the thing, it's planned out.
Yeah.
As to where Robbie can just wing it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
This is just singing together, and it's great. And as the song ends, they cut to Robbie Robertson. There's an interview with him, and this is what he says
after the last waltz,
which I think is beautiful. He says, the road was our school. At the end, it was our sense of survival. It taught us all we know. There's not much left that we can really take from the road. We've had our share of, or maybe it's just superstitious. And then Martin Scorsese says, superstitious in what way? Robbie Robertson says, no, you can press your luck. The road has taken a lot of great ones. Hank Williams, Buddy Holly, Otis Redding, Janis, Jimi Hendrix, Elvis. It's a goddamn impossible way of life. There's no question about it. And that little bitty segment there is one of my favorite parts of the last waltz. And is there
Yeah.
a better concert film
Nope.
ever made?
Yeah, I know there was. I know the exact. I love that interview at the end.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, backstage.
We'll have to play that again when we have our brother Lou on because
he's working on some new. He needs. He's getting some new equipment delivered, and Yep.
Lou's gonna have a lot. Lou is always. You and Lou have always. You taught me a lot about the band before I met you and Lou. I knew about the band, but I didn't really know him. And you and Lou schooled me on a lot of this stuff. I knew before I met Lou that Levon was a great guy, but because through my father.
Oh yeah, something about Levon Helm. Yep. And,
yeah, my father dealt with him in Woodstock in the bank, and great guy, but I hear him on the radio. Then I start hearing Lou talk about, the way Levon plays. Then you're the one that got me into a lot of stuff that Robertson did that I didn't know about, and I appreciate him as a songwriter.
Well, so, we all have little stories about Robbie Robertson in the sense that I remember driving down to Florida and those kind of things, and I'm playing. I'm the guy I went down we drove down with. I'm playing the band, and he's playing Thompson Twins. So it's like, and when I played the band, he's making fun of it. YOLO, YOLO. Like he's laughing at me. And
don't talk about Lou. He's on now. Come on.